I absolutely love the look of Shibori, but was just a little bit intimidated by the chemical process of dyeing. So I just thought I have got to try this with tulip tie-dye. So that's what I did. I actually went to a big box store. This one I went to was Walmart and bought all the supplies that I needed except for that PVC pipe and the twine. The twine I actually bought off Amazon. It is a wax twine, but you could find twine at Walmart. I just purchased it ahead of time. The pros and cons of using twine coated with wax is that it sticks to that PVC pipe great, but if you want to wrap it all and then squish it together, you are going to have a lot of trouble because the twine sticks to the PVC pipe. Great. So I will link below what the products that I bought from Amazon was, and you can decide if you have something at your house that you just want to use or if you want to try and purchase this. So the stuff that I bought at Walmart was a couple yards of 100% cotton fabric. I bought the little kit of the indigo blue tie-dye from Tulip brand. I also bought craft sticks. The rubber bands come in the kit. The gloves come in the kit. I did purchase soda ash, which you can get at Walmart. It's not always in stock. So what I did was I purchased mine at Amazon as well. And then I bought a big bag of it so I could do more tie-dye. But honestly, you really don't need that much. So I probably ended up using 2 cups of soda ash total, and I dyed a lot of projects because what you can do is you can reuse the soda ash. And I used an old jug, an old gallon jug that actually had vinegar in it that I rinsed really well. And when I was all done using the vinegar, I ended up rinsing it out and just using it as a gallon jug to mix up my soda ash in. So I filled it a third of the way full with hot water. I used a funnel that I bought at Dollar Tree. I'm sure you could get a funnel from any big box store, but it was just really cheap at Dollar Tree, so I just did that. I added a cup of soda ash to the hot water, closed the lid, shook it up really well until it was all dissolved, and then I added cold water in to fill the jug to full. Then I used a tub and I poured the soda ash. I ended up having to make 2 gallons of soda ash water for all the projects that I did, and that includes, like, I did a bunch of t-shirts, so a lot more projects than just these in this video. After the cotton has soaked in soda ash for at least 30 minutes, you can go ahead and squeeze out all the extra water. And then I've already folded up one of the pieces of fabric and wrapped around the pole. And then the other piece, I did a scrunch method, which I just scrunched it with my hands and then put rubber bands around it to secure it. This technique I'm doing right here, I am using a leftover plastic lid from some delicious cookies that I had. It's a plastic lid. I'm just cutting it. It's thin plastic, so I'm cutting it with scissors to triangle shapes. And I'm just going to use those 2 triangle shapes and put it on either side of the triangles that I just folded up. And then I'm using the clamps, but those clamps actually that I got from the Dollar Tree are just not quite strong enough to really hold this together. So I ended up getting a clamp that I had from the hardware store. And so if you don't have a hardware store clamp or something that you can hold it tight together, or you could use some of that twine, wrap it around, and that would hold it together really well. I just had a clamp on hand and wanted to try it. So that is how I did this. Then for this last one that I am folding, I folded it probably one too many times. And because if you'll see on my finished project, the one that's striped, it's the lines with the craft sticks, it has this really large white section that has just tiny bits of blue in it. So if you don't really want all of that white with the little bit of blue, don't fold it quite as many times. But that also means you're going to need more rubber bands and craft sticks. So you might end up needing to purchase extra rubber bands or wrap it different ways. This is just what I decided to do for time's sake, and I really wasn't sure exactly how it was going to come out. I still love the way it looks, and I think it's really unique with the white and the more dyed section. Anytime whatever fabric is on the outside is going to have more dye on it than what's underneath the layers. So consider that when you're folding it and folding it over on itself. Maybe if you want it to be more kind of look like an ombre look, then you might want to more accordion fold it together so that the end ends up being the darkest part. Now we're going to move on to the dyeing portion of it. And this dye only is active for about 45 minutes. So you don't want to mix up the dye until you're ready to put it on. So I've got these all in a plastic tub. I have some metal shelving, and I just used one of them to lay inside the plastic tub, and that way the dye could just drip down to the bottom. But honestly, I used every single bit of this dye that was in the bottle for these 4 projects. Once I have all of them dyed, then I'm going to let them set. The bottles or the packaging says to let it set 6 to 8 hours. I ended up letting mine set at least 10 hours. And I put the lid on this plastic container. I left it outside where it was able to get at least warm up to 70 degrees. Then I put the lid on it and waited for a day, basically. Now you can see I'm rinsing them out, and honestly, hardly any of the dye is rinsing out of these. The water does turn a little bit blue, but that just lets me know that I did a really good job of making sure the fabric really soaked, or the dye really soaked into that fabric. So the first rinse really needs to be cold water, because what you're doing is you're going to try to rinse all that soda ash out of your fabric, because that will help stop the dyeing process. And that soda ash almost feels slimy. What it ends up doing is drying out my hands really bad. So anytime you're working with that, I recommend wearing gloves, because it might do the same thing to you where it dries out your hands really bad. So I always tried to have gloves when I was using it. But you can see this one that I was telling you about was a lot lighter, whiter on the top of it. This was the one, this wrapped pole was the one I was most curious about what it was going to look like. I think it turned out great. And you'll see in just a minute, one of my favorite things about it was it has where it's folded, almost like that ink splot technique that you do with ink, and when you smash paper together, you really do get that kind of look when you fold it like this and then do the wrapping. It takes forever to unwrap this thing, but that was the easiest way that I thought to unwrap it, was just come off the same way it went on. You can clip every single little piece, but I thought, well, maybe I could reuse that later. I don't know, the twine, if I really wanted to do a bunch of projects. But you can see I'm rinsing it out. So once you get them all, do the first rinse, then I let them dry, and then I washed them all in the washing machine with vinegar and I put a tiny bit of Dawn dish soap, and that also helps the dye stop being activated. I think the most rewarding part was the end when they're all hanging on the line and they just look so beautiful, and I'm just imagining what all I'm going to make with them. So if you're curious what technique was which one, the furthest to the right was the one I just scrunched up into a ball. The one right next to it with the diamonds is the triangle one that I folded into triangles and used a clamp. The one right next to that with the white part on top and the lines on the bottom, that is the one I folded with the craft sticks. And then the one on the very end to the left, I have to think about it for a second, that is the one that I used with the pole. So I wrapped the pole, and that is how they all turned out. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And if you loved it, subscribe for more stuff that I make. Find out what else I turn the rest of these Shibouri pieces into. Thanks for watching. See you next time.